Hi, everybody. This is Yona from Field Team Center, and I'm here today with a very special guest. We're going to talk about voice acting and careers in performance in general, and it's going to be really great. So, I'm here with Mateo Ervin, who is an actor, voice actor, improviser, puppeteer, and clown based in New York City. Recent voiceover work includes Hologram Man in Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's, Otis in Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel Dawn of the Battle Royale for Nintendo Switch, and the English voice of Igor Baez in Netflix's Too Hot to Handle Brazil. In April 2021, he originated the role of the Rogue for the immersive improvised tabletop RPG show The 20-Sided Tavern, which has run in New York City, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. He rejoins the team this August at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. He also has 5 cats, each of whom he loves very, very much. You can find more information about him on Instagram at mateo.ervin.acts or his website, mateoervinacts.com. And all of that information for finding out more about Mateo will be in our description box. Mateo, hi, how's it going?
Hello, it's going well. How are you today?
Doing great and really happy to have you with us. So,
I'm
I've
so glad to
obviously
be
got
here.
some questions. First and foremost, I need to know the names of these cats. I think the people want to know.
Absolutely. They are Timpani, Fiddle, Ursula, Ernie, and Merlin.
Merlin. Those are excellent cat
Merlin.
names.
We actually have 2 little foster cats whose names are Chupacabra and Bigfoot.
Oh, there's a theme. This is good. Well, with all those cats, I'm sure that keeps you entertained. Um, and you were entertaining a lot of us. A lot of the teams at the Guild Team Center love Yu-Gi-Oh! And we're really excited to hear that I was bringing on somebody
Oh man.
who is involved. So, how did you get involved with Yu-Gi-Oh? How did you land that role?
Oh man, I so when I first started looking into voiceover back in the summer of 2018, somebody recommended I go to a class with Darren Dunstan, who, if anyone has seen the original Yu-Gi-Oh, he's the voice of Maximilian Pegasus. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, and now he is the casting director and director for the show. So I took a class with him. I've done a few auditions for him throughout the years, but then eventually he sent me the audition for this, and I got in the show, which is a dream come true.
Wow. So, is this the first time that your voice has been on TV?
Yes, the first time on TV. The other one is on Netflix, and a couple of other ones that appeared on like Netflix and Amazon Prime. But this is the first one that's on, I think, Disney XD. So
Wow. Yeah. So, how does that feel?
it feels amazing. I was God, I don't know how, but it was like September of 2001 when the first episodes dropped of the original Yu-Gi-Oh, and my dad was traveling for business a lot at that time, and he had brought back Yu-Gi-Oh cards in Japanese, so we like had those in our hands, my brother and I, watching the original like debut. So
Oh my God, that's amazing. Did he get any of the cards that your character uses?
uh, I don't know actually. No, actually, he didn't. He didn't. That would have been cool. But a few that are like tangentially related rather.
Okay. Uh, so I guess you probably know what kinds of cards this character uses because you have to like the lines are like I will now draw, right?
Yes. And actually, in that first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! All those years ago, Seto Kaiba summons a bunch of blue eyes white dragons, and in the first episode, spoilers of this season of Yu-Gi-Oh! I get to summon the blue eyes white dragon.
Oh, that's so excellent. Can you give us like a sample of what Hologram Man sounds like summoning Blue Eyes White Dragon?
Yes, his voice is much deeper than mine and has a flair for the dramatic. And he says, "I summon the Blue Eyes White Dragon."
That's amazing. That's so fun.
That's so fun.
Wow. So what is it like when you go into record for a show like Yu-Gi-Oh? Just
Yeah,
walk us through a day in the life.
Yeah, absolutely. I do a decent. Most of my work has been in dubbing, whether it be for anime or other things that have come over. So for this one, normally for dubbing work, you'll have match to video. So you'll be watching the video of the original work going on, and then you'll go and you'll try and make it match up. Darren has been doing this for so long, and it's recorded almost entirely at home. So when we're doing it, it's actually entirely over the phone, and he's been doing it so long that he's able to watch it and gauge whether or not it fits the lip flaps and the mood and the tone. So
That
mostly
sounds
it's just
like that sounds like the perfect work from home during COVID. That's amazing.
it's amazing. Yeah, so I'll be here like with my phone on speaker yelling about Blue Eyes into it, and he'll say, "Okay, let's slow that down a little right there, speed this up a little right there, and give me a little more like schwing on this word." So I don't know
Oh
what
my
it
god,
looks like until it came out.
what does swing mean? Like when
I
they
don't
ask for
know.
something like that, what do you give them? You just do
Oh,
something different?
yeah, give a little different. Try to like fit what Schwing feels. It might be like I just punch it really hard, or maybe it's a little more coy.
Amazing. So, where you are right now for this call, is this where you do your voice recording?
This is my front atrium closet, which
Uh-huh.
actually right before the pandemic I converted into a studio. So I have a bunch of like soundproof blankets. I have a towel behind me because it gets very hot in here, and this is interchangeable. Uh, a nice little fan that's up there, and then here is my microphone, which I'm not going to move right now. But
Okay.
yeah, this is where it all happens.
Cool. Wow. Everything you say, I'm like, okay, I need to ask about the microphone. We need to ask about okay, hang on. Let me look at my list of questions and make sure there's not something more important. Okay, no. Let's stay with Yu-Gi-Oh for another minute.
Yeah.
Um, do you get to okay, so you're on the phone with Darren, and this is Mr. Pegasus himself, basically, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and also your former teacher. So,
Yeah.
do you get to interact with any of the other cast members, especially like people who you would be in a scene with?
No, not at
Wow.
all. So I didn't know anyone I was working with until we had a little debut watch show about a month ago when it came out, and I got to meet all these people whose voices I interact with. But other than that, it's entirely like sometimes he'll read me through the other person's lines, and then I'll get to like respond to them. But I have no idea who it is or what it's gonna sound like or anything like that.
Wow. Okay. So you just have to really trust that he's giving you good directions and he has to
Yeah.
trust that you're going to be able to follow them.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Okay. Um, so you took a class, right? And probably you've taken a lot of classes. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like? Especially since it sounded like it directly prepared you for this role.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of the classes, the ones that I've taken, have predominantly been in animation work. There's so many different, like, tiny little niches of voiceover, like commercial or educational, or like being the person who does the like movie credits. You can make your whole living off of just doing that. So for these ones, you go in, and the ones that I've done, sometimes it'll be you'll get like a sheet that you might get for an audition or for an actual recording session, and you'll be given a little bit of coaching, sometimes no coaching. Go in, you'll read into a microphone, and then he might coach you through it and give you like, okay, so give me a little swing here. Let's slow it
Mhm.
down there. Let's make sure that we enunciate on this, or that we like here's a different like tactic for you to use on this particular line. And so it's a lot of it is also like how because it does rely so heavily on that direction. There's not a scene partner to feed off of. So much of it is about how can I take in that information, sometimes like 8 different points, some of them contradictory, and incorporate that into a second read that gets what they want.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So it sounds like you already went into this having the idea that you'd like to work on animated pieces, maybe even in dubbing. What made you decide to move in that direction or add that direction to your repertoire, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big old fan of cartoons. I love video games. So that was like a natural urge for me to go into those because, and that's also what most of my voiceover exposure has been to. As I've gone along, I've realized, oh, right, every time I hear it on the radio anytime someone is talking in a commercial and I don't see them, every time there's like somebody in a bar scene in a movie and they're like, that's also voice acting that doesn't actually take place while they're filming. Um, but that's the one that I was most familiar with, and it was actually the show Critical Role, which has a bunch of voice actors in it. I had been watching that extensively before I talked to a friend and said, "Hey, how do I do this thing?" And she was so kind. Francesca Kahlo is her name, and she gave me so many pointers. She actually pointed me to Darren's class and a few other
Ah,
directions as well.
okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that that's true for a lot of our teams too. And I know they're going to ask, they're going to be curious, what were some of your favorite cartoons, either growing up or right now, or video games too, any of that?
Absolutely. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh was a big one. Very formative. Pokemon was a
Oh,
huge
yeah.
show for me. I mean, that I think that was before Yu-Gi-Oh. Absolutely fell in love with that. Uh, Anything that was on Kids WB growing up, I didn't have cable. And
Mm.
then video games, I played World of Warcraft way too much in high school. I played a huge amount of the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, the original Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter's Nights, all those like fun, nerdy RPGs. So those were the ones that like really captured my soul. And then when I found out that this was a thing that I could potentially do, I was like, yeah, I want to do those things.
Right. I mean, who wouldn't? Also, this just confirms we would have been friends as teenagers, and that sparks a lot of joy for me.
Amazing, yes.
All right. So, before we move on from all things Yu-Gi-Oh and voice acting, I have another question about your setup. So, it seems like a lot of what you're doing is just like homebrew. You're doing it out of your own house. So, your mic is something that you purchased, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of microphone you're using and how you figured out that that was the right one for you to use?
Yes, absolutely. So I started off with, I can actually grab it real quick.
Okay, be safe.
I will be safe. Uh, this, I still have it, is a Shure SM7B. It is a dynamic microphone, so you'll actually see these on like a lot of podcasts. They're really great for like picking up sound in one area. That's what I started with. When I was hired for Yu-Gi-Oh, most people who do animation use condenser mics. So I'm actually gonna like pan this over real quick. This is my AT4050. And the sound engineer was kind enough to talk me through like different options, and I settled on this one as the best option for recording animation. It just provides like a really rich sound compared to a dynamic microphone, and I love it. It's one of my best friends and most valued possessions.
Yeah, okay. Um, do you have any advice for somebody who wants to kind of start practicing voice acting in their own home, who's maybe, not working for a major animated production?
Yes, absolutely. Let me put this down real quick. So the thing I would recommend most work in voiceover, even in the animation world these days, is like very naturalistic. Uh, I feel like 20 years ago, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, you had very like campy, over the top, ridiculous voices, and it's the pendulum has swung kind of away from that. And as a result, I came into these classes expecting to be like, "Hey man, I'm a little goblin, hibbity bibbity bibbity," and I certainly do get to do that, and it's a joy whenever I do because that's the kind of work that I love. But a great deal of it is just learning to talk with your own voice and be able to add that same inflection and joy and emotion. So what I'd recommend is just like picking up a book and then recording yourself reading it, and listening to it through earphones because your voice sounds completely different to your ears than it does when it goes through something and then into headphones. There's your brain structure, or your head cranial structure alters it completely. So when I'm listening right here, it's because I'm getting something completely different if I take these off, than what I'm actually creating with my voice. And then learning to love it, fall in love with your own voice, is so important. Like not in a narcissistic way, but for a very long time, I hated my voice. I hated how high it sounded. I hated how like soft. I do this. I have this little like S that sometimes comes out. It's very sibilant, and I was ashamed of that. And it took me a very long time and a lot of training to like fall back in love with my voice, even with all of its like little foibles that aren't really foibles. They're just like what makes my voice unique. So find out what makes your voice unique and learn to fall in love with that.
And it sounds like what you're recommending is stuff that somebody could do at home, literally anywhere that's semi-quiet on their phone.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, like I said, most of all those sessions over the phone, like you get the same kind of audio quality that you would not recording it, but because I was doing that directed over the phone, all of my voiceover classes are over the phone as well because it picks up a lot of those same things. Maybe not exactly the same, but it's a great resource that we have these tiny little microphones that we can use.
We were talking about hibbity bibbity goblin
Yes.
voices, and I think we should get into that more because you do this awesome D&D role-playing show that I actually got to see, and it was a lot of fun. Can you talk about what it's like preparing for an improv show in person like that, as opposed to these over-the-phone voice recordings?
Yeah, I would say I pay a lot more attention to getting my body ready for that. Like in both, I'll do like vocal warm ups to make sure that I'm not gonna like crack or damage my voice in the middle of a show or during the middle of a record, because those are both very important contexts in which maintaining that voice is very important. Um, yeah, I get my body ready, and also I don't know, I do a lot of things to just like loosen up as much as possible. The more rigidity I hold in my body, the more tension, the worse both of those are going to go. Either because I get in my head in a recording session because I'm like, oh, that wasn't good, that was so bad, and then I'm not actually focusing on the work, or because I'm on stage and I'm not being fully receptive, especially in an improv show, to what other performers are feeding me, what the audience is feeding me. Both of those are so important to give and take fully and be able to listen.
Yeah, it occurs to me that it's possible that some people who are watching might not know what improv is or is like. Can you give us a quick rundown?
Yeah, improv is it's basically just coming up with the whole show, and it's usually used in a for comedy. Whose line is it anyway, or what have you? The show that I do is it's partially scripted, and then there are huge swaths of the script that are just like be funny here. So in those moments, it's just like improv is basically just like listening really good and then being able to respond in a matter that accomplishes what is needed, whether it be like funny, or there's also dramatic improv in which
Hmm.
you're like really listening and also trying to like I don't know, create a sensation of pathos or um, no matter what, it's about listening and responding truthfully to whatever is needed.
Cool. Can you tell us a little bit more about the 20-sided tavern and like what
Yeah.
your role is generally like? Like, are you always the rogue? Do you get to do different stuff? How does the show go?
Yeah, I started with the 20 Sided Tavern about a year ago, and it's a show that it. How to describe it? So it's basically, if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, it is a live interactive show where the audience chooses which characters we play and then makes crucial decisions along the way. They might decide, like, do we attack this group of bandits or do we try to be nice to them? Or during combat, it'll be like, do I stab them in the back or do I attempt to pickpocket my companions? Um, and then we go through this little story, and it is set in a structure. There's like a full arc within that. But within that, there's so much room for things to go completely differently that no two shows are ever the same.
Sounds like it's like challenging because you never really know what to expect, but also sounds really fun because you're not going to get bored doing the same thing over and over.
Yes, exactly. Which is something that it and voiceover have in common. I come from the world of theater where theoretically we're supposed to do the exact same thing every single time and be able to replicate the same thing every single time, which I have a hard time with. So I love in voiceover that I do it and I get to record it and it's done and I get to do something else. And with this, I do it and I get to change it every single time and discover new things every single time, and then do it again.
Yeah, that's really fun. Okay, so I'm assuming you also play D&D in your regular life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you feel like that has helped prepare you for this particular show?
Oh, so much, so much. We were asked to come in and create some new characters for the show, and I was basically able to just pull a couple that I had played, and then reskin them a little bit, workshop it with the others, and then two of them I'm now playing as characters in the show. There's Barry Von Goblin Tooth, a megalomaniacal goblin, and then there's also Wandro the Wizard, who is the most amazing wizard in the world, except he's not really a wizard. He's a rogue who's dressed up in a wizard outfit.
Oh, that's really good.
It's very fun.
Oh, that's delightful. When you play D&D, what kinds of characters do you naturally choose? Like, do you have a campaign right now?
Yes, actually, I so I love to create characters. It's something that's a great passion of mine, even if I never get to play them. One of the characters I play now is a half orc bard named Ognarok Gore Smasher, but his name is Agi to his friends. And one day, he was a barbarian who went around killing. He killed everything to his left. He killed everything to his right. He looked around for more things to kill. But then he looked up, and he saw the moon, and he fell in love. So he threw away his sword, picked up his ukulele, and began wandering the wilderness, coming up with songs to sing to his new love, the moon. And so he's like a very funny character because I just get to be like a big dumb goofball who like sings on the ukulele to his moon. Um, and I feel like all of my characters kind of fit in there. I was telling a friend once about a new character I had made, and I described them as, yeah, they're this person who, deep down, they just really want a hug. And they said, it sounds like all your characters just really want a hug. And I had to examine myself in that moment.
Oh my gosh. I mean, if that's the depth of your like psychological trauma, that's not too bad. I feel
That's
like
not too
hugs are
bad.
achievable.
Exactly, they are achievable, and yet, but
Oh my god. Okay, I'm in love. Orkulele, we're in love with the moon. Truly, this is the highlight of my day already. Um, so how do you come up with new voices and new characters? Like, what do you do to put a twist on it so you're not just doing the same character over and over again? Or what do you do when you get stuck?
yeah, I will. I don't know. I make a lot of just dumb voices. I will in my daily life just begin talking like this, or sometimes and just experiment with the full range. And sometimes I'll hear something that I like. And the other thing I hold very true to my heart is that good artists borrow, but great
Mm-hmm.
artists steal. And if I hear something that I like, I'll try and recreate it. I'm very bad at impressions, but I love like seeing what happens when I try to make that impression. And usually it's nowhere near what it actually is, but whatever I come up with is like, oh, that's a new characteristic I had not discovered before. So listening to people around me or various media and just trying to like replicate it poorly.
That's a really great way to put it. And it sounds like that prevents you from like ever getting in trouble for being a great artist and stealing because you can really only ever be yourself.
Exactly. It's like
Wow.
parody laws. I'm not actually copying it. I'm just doing it poorly.
Beautiful. That's amazing. So it sounds like a lot of the time you might be inspired by people around you and like some of the fandoms that you like that you were describing earlier. Does that sound right?
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wow, cool. Okay. Wow, you're already answering some of the things I was planning to ask you. So what I want to know, speaking of that deep down Mateo who just needs a hug, I want to talk to baby Mateo. I want to talk to your inner child, and I want to know what you were like as a teenager.
Ooh, as a teenager, I was sad. I
Oh,
was a
Mateo.
sad, moody teenager who clearly just needed a hug, but was unwilling to ask for it or allow himself to be open enough to get it. Yeah, I don't know. I was like very sad. Wow, this took a turn. But yeah, played a lot of video games. Like I said, a lot of World of Warcraft. Started getting into theater and opened up in that context only, but mostly like kind of a recluse.
Mm-hmm. What changed? Because that's not how I would describe you now at all.
I hide it well. No, I would
Ah,
say I'm still like very much an introvert, but I've learned how to I don't know. I've just become a little more confident as I've gone along. I've opened up a little. I'm not as scared of humans, still usually terrified of them, but that's just something that comes with time.
Wow. Okay. So, on the one hand, terrified of humans, totally reasonable. I often feel the same way. On the other hand, you're like not only on a stage in front of a bunch of people, but on a stage in costume trying to give a performance, which sounds terrifying. How do you reconcile those two parts of yourself? Or like what makes you have the courage to get on stage at all?
Oh man, I don't know. Those two just like for me, there's such a big barrier between those two. There's like there's the emotional honesty of like calling a friend and saying, "Hey, I'm really hurting and I need help right now." And that is something that Mateo has only found in like the last 6 months to a year, as opposed to the emotional honesty of like, "Okay, the crowd really likes this, so I'm going to hit this one point over and over and over again." I don't know. For me, the two are like so separate and yet very much not so. In my head, that's just been like one thing that I can access and feel very comfortable in because it's not me, which I
Mm.
think goes back to like goobledy gobbledy gibbledy goo. I'm a goblin. How about you? Like there's a certain safety in that, and in that there's a barrier, a separation of like presenting something that is not me. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, good for you for like building some skills around being able to name that and like improving the hidden aspects of yourself in addition to like building all these skills around acting and performing because that's really hard to do. Good job.
Thank you. It is hard.
Okay, I'm doing this out of order, but speaking of building skills, I forgot I needed to ask you. So you talked about the one class that you took that kind of led to voice acting for Yu-Gi-Oh. Can you talk a little bit about just your training and your background in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I started getting into theater in middle or high school, and then in college, I originally went for like early or elementary education, and then
Whoa.
quickly fell back in love with acting, and have just kind of pursued that ever since. I moved up to New York after college, kind of doddered around a bit. That's not a word, but I dawdled around a bit, and in that time, I did some theater things, and then, like I said, in 2018, I spoke with that friend of mine who recommended this class and also recommended a teacher, a vocal coach,
Mm-hmm.
specifically for voiceover, who has been I've been with that teacher for almost 3 years at this point. That's crazy. And through that mentorship, she has helped develop my demo. She has worked with me almost every week on mostly animation because that is her specialty, but also educational work, audiobooks, commercial reads,
Mm-hmm.
and has also helped me to figure out how to email an agent or how to respond to an audition request. And that has been absolutely invaluable. In addition to like any other classes I can take with any number of casting directors or
Mm-hmm.
other voice actors, just to glean what knowledge I can from them.
So do you still take classes today when they come up?
Yes, absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
probably not as many as I should, but there's never enough.
Sure. Yeah. And how often do you feel like you send out queries or emails or demo tapes to people?
Not nearly enough. That's it's something I've discovered is that 99% of acting is not actually acting.
Yeah.
Acting is the 1% that is the reward at the end. It's the ice cream sundae at the end of the marathon. Do people eat ice cream sundaes at the end of marathons? That
You
sounds
can eat
wrong.
ice cream if you want.
Yeah, and that is the ice cream that I eat at the end of that marathon that involves networking, that involves like sending out those emails to constant people to facing that constant rejection,
Mm,
or like not hearing anything back, auditions, all those other things that are very, for someone who is very terrified of people, very hard to do, but
yeah.
is such an integral and essential part of that work that I just kind of have to get over that hump.
Yeah. And it sounds like you take classes not just to become a better actor, but to help prepare you for the non-ice cream parts of the role.
Yes, absolutely. Because as an actor, you are, especially as a freelance actor, you are a small business owner, and
Mm-hmm.
you are the CEO. You're the marketing department. You are the product. You are quality assurance, and you can outsource some of those elements if you pick up an agent or if you have a friend who you can trust to call you and say, "Hey, have you submitted recently?" But ultimately, a lot of it comes down to you doing all of those different aspects that a small business would.
Yeah, wow. That also sounds very hard. Look at you working hard in every area.
Trying to.
Oh my goodness. So how do you motivate yourself when you get those rejection letters or where you're just like emailing no fun, do not want? Like how do you make yourself stay on top of it or like how do?
Yeah, I think I am still very much figuring that out. What has worked is remembering that Sunday at the end, and also learn. It's kind of like it's easy to like. It's really easy to focus on all of those negative parts, in the same way that it's really easy for me to focus on all the negative parts of my voice. But
Hmm.
if through enough practice, through enough repetition, I can begin to understand the elements of those that I do enjoy, the elements that I am good at, that I am skilled at, then I can begin to find those like little, oh man, I didn't get that job, but I did a real good job in that audition. Or, ooh, that email signature that I sent off sure was tidy. I don't know if they noticed it, but golly gee, felt good.
We love a tidy email signature.
Love a tidy email signature. Yeah.
So, how do you find classes that are going to be appropriate to take? It sounds like friends recommend some of them.
Yeah, a lot of it is word of mouth, talking with other people to hear what they like. Looking on places like Actors Connection, there are a ton of great Zoom classes. I would definitely get recommendations from people, just because
Mm.
there are a lot of uh, when there's a gold rush, you want to be the one selling pans, and not everyone's selling the good pans. So
Sure.
yeah, definitely like making sure that you're not walking into a scam or anything like that. But Actors Connection, places like Backstage, those are most of the places that I look for mine, and
Okay,
word of mouth.
cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any like hot, spicy tips for how to spot a scam in like 10 seconds?
If it starts with something like, do you want to make six figures from the comfort of your house in only 5 minutes, then take my class for $500. And it's not
Yeah.
going to be that obvious, but if they're promising the world for very little work, chances are they're not actually promising anything.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, to generalize a lot more, you work so hard, you have all this knowledge that you've built up. What kind of advice would you give young Mateo specifically, and just a teen who's interested in acting in general? Because those might be separate answers.
Absolutely. To myself, I would say, just to repeat something I've said before, like learn to fall in love with the things you don't like, or like you probably won't like everything, but like there are bits in there that you can find. Sometimes it just requires a shift in perspective. Um, and also stop playing World of Warcraft. You spent so much time doing that. You spent so much time playing World of Warcraft, Mateo.
Oh,
Stop it.
Mateo.
Um, and then to somebody else who would be interested, I would say, yeah, kind of what I mentioned earlier. Just start reading, start listening to yourself, and identify the things that you like about your voice, and learn what makes it unique, because everyone has a unique voice, and that's what people want. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Well, do you have anything else that you want to add that you either want to share about yourself or, anything upcoming that you want us to check out or just, something that would be fun to say?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing another thing of the 20-sided Tavern here in New York at the end of July, and then we're going to Edinburgh to perform there.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm
Have you
I'm
been to
very
Europe
excited for
before?
it. I have only been to London one time. That's the only time I've been out of the country, so this will be the second
Oh
time.
my gosh, that's
Yeah,
extra exciting.
so
So
I'm very pumped for
cool.
that.
Oh man. Well, I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
And I am just so excited to have gotten to talk to you and share a little bit of your knowledge.
Yes,
This was so fun.
this was delightful. I apologize for how sweaty I am, but this is one of the realities of being in a recording booth.
Thank you for sweating for us. Really
Absolutely.
appreciate it. So, if anybody has follow up questions, there are a number of ways that they can get in touch with us at Field Teen Center. Of course, you can always visit us in person. We're in Philadelphia. It's 1901 Vine Street. We are on the ground floor. We're open Monday through Friday from 1 to 5 p.m. And in case of any changes to that schedule, you can find us on Instagram. It's FLP Teen Center. And you can email us at teencenter@freelibrary.org. All of that will be in the description box. So you can send us questions about things you want to see, book recommendations, or if you have questions for Mateo, you can send them to us and we'll kick them back over to him if his schedule allows it.
I
All
would be
right,
happy to. Could I add one more thing? I
please.
forgot.
Yeah, yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
right after this, I'm recording an episode for the 20-Sided Tavern podcast, which is called Ale and Well Met. And so if you want to check it out, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on most of them. But Ale and Well Met, it'll be episode 3. And you can vote on what you want to happen in each episode.
Oh, that's fun. Cool. Then that makes sense. That sounds like the show.
Very fitting.
Well, that's cool. Maybe that's what I'll do while I'm washing dishes after this.
Oh, I hope you enjoy.
Oh, thank you. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your evening.